My guest today is Mr. Scott McEuen. Mr. McEuen is a longtime educator and former superintendent of Casa Grande Union High School. He also served as the head coach for the Cougars varsity football team in 1990, and currently serves on the Mayor's Task Force for Homelessness and on the board for the Casa Grande Faith Alliance, and previously served as the stake president of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints here in Casa Grande. Mr. McEuen, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me, President. I'm impressed. You got a lot of information there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So to get started, I wanted to talk a little bit about your history here in the Casa Grande area. I know that shortly after graduating from the University of Arizona, you were actually offered a job with the school district here in Casa Grande by none other than Warren Curtis, who was superintendent at the time. And you also coached different sports here at Casa Grande Union, including the varsity football, as I mentioned, and served as the athletic director of the school, worked as administrator for a number of years, and became superintendent. You also eventually served on the governing board as well. So one thing I would really love to know is what inspired you to take on so many different roles with our community?
Well, I think, first of all, it was being in the right place at the right time. I did not come to Casa Grande, Arizona, like you said, many years ago with the intent of, I'm going to come and change this, and I'm going to help people, and I'm going to change this community. It all just kind of grew gradually. The opportunities were there with the school as I came, even dealing with the young man and coaching and teaching and et cetera. It did allow me to, as I was with a high school, I started becoming active in service clubs. And I became president of Kiwanis Club. I was a member of Rotary Club, and I joined a lot of boards later on. So I guess my motivation way back then just kind of evolved slowly to where I am now. And so it's a different motivation now than it was back then. My motivation then was on my profession, my family, and doing those things. Mm-hmm. But now I have a little more time, a little different focus, so it's changed.
Yeah, absolutely. And, one thing I always wonder about whenever we have somebody who comes into the studio for an interview is, what makes you want to stay locally? What is it that pulls you to stay in a community like Casa Grande?
Gosh, good question. Sometimes my wife asks me that question because her family, she has been here for 65 years. Mm-hmm. So, and I've been here 59 years, so our roots are pretty deep. Mm-hmm. And so there was a pool at the time, maybe her whole family left. But I just found that Casa Grande's a unique community. Mm-hmm. It's a good one. And there's ways to serve that probably I could not do anywhere else. And so I just I've met so many people, I've been rewarded, I'm around, and so I just think I can still contribute here, maybe where I couldn't someplace else. And I will add this also, Casa Grande gives back to me. It's a nice place to live. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I imagine, after leaving education, you still remained pretty active here in the Casa Grande community. As I mentioned, you're a member of Mayor Craig McFarland's Task Force on Homelessness, and then you're also an active board member with the Faith Alliance here. Can you tell me a little bit about your work with both organizations?
Yes, I can. And I should back up probably. What has set the stage for these is I served on the hospital board for a number of years. I was president of the school board. And so that kind of gave me a taste of seeing some things that really can be done and how it's helpful. So about 13 years ago, some of us loaded into a city van, drove to Tempe to look at a program called TEAM, Tempe Emergency Assistant Ministry. And we came back and we modeled a program after that. The mayor bought into it, the city council bought into it. And we dropped the T and called it EAM, Emergency Assistant Ministry. And so that was the founding of what is now known as Faith Alliance of Casa Grande. So at that time, we wanted to have we wanted to stop duplicating helping individuals and get together as churches and faith-based organizations. So at any rate, we are where we are now, and I'm really happy with Faith Alliance of Casa Grande. If you'd like, I can expound just a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. What we're doing, we just finished the Mayor's annual Pastors Appreciation Day. Big turnout, representatives from a lot of different churches and faith-based organizations and others in town. And the mayor does a great job. First of all, he commends the churches of working together. And I think that's extremely important in a community like ours. That's one reason that we are strong. And I will just give a real quick side note. Some of us know that there now is a Jewish community coming from New York City. And they're bringing quite a few families. And we should open our arms, we should welcome them, and because it really is important, this diversity of different cultures, it makes us really stronger. Also, we just finished our annual blood drive, one of the largest in southern Arizona for a lot of years. It's our 7th year. This Faith Alliance of Casa Grande put that on. And another significant thing that we are doing that I think is really valuable is and it might sound trivial to begin with, but we make sure there is prayer offered at the start of every city council meeting. And that is not a privilege throughout the entire country. So we really should value that. And our council does, and they and so we appreciate them for allowing that to take place. So that's just a few of the things. We have other things going on, but it's a good organization. Mm-hmm. We also, I should say, support areas like the homelessness and those things that need to be taken care of in town. So we're very active.
Yeah, and I'm so glad you brought that up, actually, because that was my next question. So, of course, you served as stake president for the Casa Grande LDS for a time, and you also played an integral role, as I understand it, in securing the grant funds for the CG Helps Resource Center. And as we touched upon earlier, you're, involved in some different interfaith organizations. And so what I'm really curious about is what's motivated you to work with so many different organizations to tackle issues like homelessness and hunger in our community?
Well, it kind of grows on you, and you see other people doing it, and you like what they're doing. You get involved. There's a good feeling, a goodwill when you're working together. And so when the mayor formed, it's probably been 4 years ago, he formed a task force, and I was invited to sit on that. 19 people from the community. We studied homeless programs from across the country and identified one in Colorado, one in Salt Lake City, Utah that we kind of liked. And so we began modeling our what's now known as CG Helps after those programs. And that was one of the results of this committee. It had to have money, of course. Everything takes that. So I was fortunate, and again, all churches have really good things, and they have good people, and I've met wonderful individuals in those. I do belong to the Church of Jesus Christ, Latter-day Saints, and so I knew the resources that we did have. And so I was able to petition, to tap into a fairly sizable cash grant to bring from our church to the CG Helps of Casa Grande. And we presented to the mayor, the council meeting, and Mary Lou Rosales, who is absolutely key in making that organization go. She was also there. And so that's how that came about with our church.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, another initiative, too, that you've worked on quite a bit is organizing the donations of food shipments from the LDS Bishop Central Storehouse in Salt Lake City to local food banks here in our area. Can you share a little bit more information about that with us and how that all came about?
Thank you for jogging my memory on these things. Those are exciting things. They really are. Mm-hmm. And we saw a need, first of all. There's the Casa Grande Food Bank, there's St. Vincent de Paul, there's the Coolidge Food Bank, and then there's Eloy's Food Bank. So there's 4 in our area. And they all started having 2 or 3 years ago a really big need. I was aware that in our church we have, we have farms that we grow things on, and we have dairies and whatever else at all. And so I again was able to tap into those resources and request, and it was granted because they saw the need in our community to bring down, oh gosh, 2,000 cases at a time on semi trucks, one for each of those food banks. And we did it over for a period of about 2.5 years, maybe once a year to each one of them. And it was significant. The recipients were almost emotional because this is really it was really quality food that they needed badly in those food banks.
Yeah.
And so it was a significant project. I loved it. We got out there ourselves and loaded. But people here in town, there were forklifts that were brought. Again, St. Vincent de Paul brought over individuals. And can I divert just 1 second?
Absolutely.
I want to mention, because it kind of is germane to what we're talking about, is people working together. St. Vincent de Paul does a really good job. I mean, they really take care of a lot of the needy here in town. Deacon Bob has become a personal close friend of mine simply because we started working together. And so one of the really big side benefits. So he contacted me about a year ago, several months ago, and said, you know what? We need our security system's gone. So if we lose too much goods and too much money, we can't operate. So we were fortunate again to go in and work with the Catholic Church. Father Ariel, again, a really good person, really good friend of mine. And so we went over and put in, I think, like 27 security cameras and hundreds of feet of cabling, and spent about 10 hours in one day after it had been all designed with our church and the Catholic Church working together with St. Vincent de Paul. And to this day, it's up and running, and Deacon Bob's happy, and so we were glad to be able to help them. But we're working together for St. Paul's mission.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a really interesting thing that I would love for you to expand on a little bit, is what drives you to work together with a lot of these different faith organizations here in the community? Why do you think that's so important?
Well, it probably goes right back to the core that unfortunately we have unrest in the world today. We're having wars going on, and people don't get along. They disagree, and it results in bad things. I have always felt if we can't get along right at the base level in a community, churches with kids with kids, there's no way that we can get along at a higher level. And so that has really driven me to try to establish good relationships. And I do have. I mean, right now I'm friends with Pastor Paul at the Presbyterian Church or the other churches. We work together, and I just see the results of that. And I have to admit, it's a little bit selfish, but there's been some friendships come out of that I like a lot. And so that's a strong motivation. And then, of course, the proof of the pudding is in the eating, as the saying goes. And that is that when you see individuals walk out of our laundry love, and with baskets, they came in, it's almost emotional that they come in and they need laundry, and it's very expensive. And so on their budget, that's the very bottom, we're doing laundry. So we provide laundry love. 6 of us churches get together, and we do it every other week. And they come in with big loads, and they leave. They are so grateful. They have smiles on their faces. And Barbara Sundust from the Catholic Church kind of organizes and heads it out. But those are the things. I mean, how can you not be doing those things and not say, this is good. This is good. I want to keep doing it, and I want to do more.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I guess, anyway, yeah.
Oh, no, absolutely. Feel free to go ahead.
Well, I just I spoke one time at a high school baccalaureate service, Casa Grande High School, and I remember quoting the lyrics of one of the songs, "Have you done any good in the world today?" And it's very simple. Have you done anything good in the world today? Have you helped anyone in need? So forth and so forth. And so I guess it goes back to, I don't play golf. I'm fortunate. My time, my resources allows me looking for ways to go about good. And I don't almost like talking about this because it sounds self-serving. Like, I honestly believe, Rosita, that anyone not everyone, but a lot of people that's been here for as long as I have, and in the positions I've been in, they probably could and would do exactly the same thing. So I don't think I'm unique there. I have had the real opportunity to go ahead and do that. 2 great commandments: love God and love your fellow man. We got to do that.
Yeah. So if there's one thing that you would love for Pinal County residents in our area to know about the organizations you work with, what would it be?
One thing.
You can do 2.
Pardon me?
I said you can do 2 if you need to.
Well, I'm thinking that probably, okay, a couple of things. One's general, and then one is a specific example. I think probably the message goes out that really, that we have broken down so many barriers in this community where we kind of set doctrine to the side. It's okay. People can have their own beliefs, and they should have their own beliefs, and it's okay. But we can set those apart, and we can still work together, shoulder to shoulder. We can go out for this, the Casa Grande cleanup. The city has that cleanup day, and work, which we're going to do, by the way, our church and another church and so forth, and work together to send that message that there really is unity. I mean, in our community, we really do have that community. A specific, I guess I would call it, need that we've not accomplished is, and I'll really try to condense this, when we went to Tempe, some of us got in a van, went up, spent the evening watching them bring in the homeless, less fortunate, to have a place to sleep in rotating churches. We were there and watched it all, came back, said we need to do that. We've not been able to implement that quite yet, where churches, we can get enough churches to open their doors to have them come in and have a meal and have a place to get for a night and rotate it with showers. I mean, that's one of the biggest things they need. And so we're part that way there, and the mayor's very supportive, and gosh, Lisa Fitzgibbons, and so many of us have worked together to try. Eventually, we probably will get there, but we're not there yet.
Yeah, no, well, nonetheless, that is amazing. And then my final question for you, it's a bit broad, but I'd love it if you could try to speak to it a bit, is what do you think are the key ingredients into making a thriving community here in Casa Grande?
Well, of course, a lot of this then goes outside the area of service, which is understandable. We have to have the economic base and factor, and obviously the mayor and council have done great. We're getting that where we have jobs and people can now work at pretty good. They're going to be able to work at higher paying jobs, which is great. We're also going to the city is trying to get affordable housing and those things. So we have to take care for a thriving community to have the economic base and to take care of the less fortunate. And I hope I will probably misquote it, but a person by the name of Harold Cousset said, you can tell the depth and the breadth and the strength of a community by how they treat their most vulnerable. And I think I probably got that, and it's true. It's true.
Yeah.
So we have to be concerned, and obviously we still have to, at all levels, we have to help everyone at all levels, but we cannot ignore that. And so for a thriving community, we really have to do, and I go back to the word service again, but we do have to be aware of individuals and help them in the right manner. I have a very strong feeling about that we don't help them. If we put Band-Aids on them, it doesn't cure. We have to go right to the core, and that's why we have case managers over at CG Helps. They find out what they need and get them where they can get jobs eventually, and that really is critical. And so those are some of the things that makes a thriving community. Of course, you have to. The mayor said, you have to have them where they can work with, and they play, they can enjoy. It's true, and we have a lot of those in Casa Grande. And I probably should have thought some more on that.
No worries. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Scott McEuen. I really appreciate your time, and I appreciate you being here today, sir.
Appreciate you. Thank you a lot.